All right, welcome guys to our another episode of Frontline Fairway. This time we're gonna do a bit of different kind of episode. We got Mark who works with On-Course Foundation and he's with us now, and Nick Franklin, Billy, and Doc with us. We're gonna ask a few questions to Mark. He's our guest today. Hopefully it will go well for Mark, and the questions would be easier and sensible ones. So without any delay, I'm going to ask Mark about your background, just go for it, right?
Yeah, well, firstly, G, thanks for having us on. I think it's a great idea to do something like this on the back of the other ones that have been successful, which guys have all been involved with. Yeah, I mean, I joined a REME when I was 16 in about 2 months, thereabouts. I wouldn't necessarily say joining the army was something that I'd always dreamed of doing. It was more a case of, in the final year of school, not really knowing what I wanted to do. And then somebody suggesting, sort of family friends who'd gone through the Army Apprentice College for REME, suggesting that what they were doing was really good and they were enjoying it. So I thought, why not have a look at it? To be honest, after 6 weeks, I was ready to can it. It was, yeah, a 16-year-old, it was, I wouldn't say it was necessarily hard looking back at it, but at the time it felt it. Yeah, I was all for leaving. Went away on a week's leave halfway through basic training, came back. First thing I said on the Monday morning was, how quickly can I get out of here? And then was one of the platoon sergeants actually pulled me to one side while I was waiting to see the platoon commander. And he just sort of said, what are you doing? I says, I want to go. I don't think it's for me. And he sat me down for sort of 10, 15 minutes, had a chat. And then he ended up doing 23 years as a result of that chat. He a South African guy, ex-para, who just turned me around, basically. So 2 years apprentice college, moved on from there, and then posted out to Germany to Royal Corps Transport Regiment. That was my first posting. So relatively easy, but I was a vehicle mechanic by trade. Went out on Op Granby with the regiment, which was, it was interesting. It wasn't I wouldn't say it was particularly difficult looking back at it. We were third line field support, so in terms of, engaging with the enemy, we didn't. We spent a long time, we spent a long time in Al Jabail getting ready to move the battle groups forward. So yeah, it was quite interesting. I think I remember the day the air war started, because it's one of those kind of funny stories, really, I guess, was me and one of the guys we'd gone up the MSR to a breakdown, and we'd come back, and just as we were getting back into the compound where we were at the time, the air raid sirens started to go off. And of course, you've got the, masking 9, and nobody knew back then what was going to happen in terms of chemical warfare as well. So you had the old masking 9 thing. And as I went to put my resi on, one of the straps popped off straight away as I was putting my resi on, and you guys know what that's like. So I was immediately flapping. Oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? But yeah, thankfully it was fine. So and then progressed through my career, spent some time with the light infantry, went out to Northern Ireland for a short spell over there at Besbrook Mill, South Armagh. Moved on to Royal Signals, 2 Signal Regiment in York, which was a great time. Went out to Bosnia, Croatia, spent most of the time in Plochdy and Split there. Another pretty easy tour, to be honest. And then I kind of, at that crossroads of a career, at 9 years of what to do, decided to go artificer, did my artificer course, and went out to join a Black Watch. Went out on Optelic 1 with a Black Watch, which was obviously a very different situation going on Telic 1. with those to being out in the Gulf the first time round. But yeah, came through all of that unscathed. And that was the last proper operational tour I did at the time. Later on, when I was a W01 ASM, I was at 9 Armoured Company in 4 Battalion REME. We went out to Kuwait for the drawdown operation, taking everything out of at the end of the Telic tours. So, but again, that was really short. First sort of time I had a kind of medical issue. Unbeknown to me, I had high blood pressure. So when we were doing pre-op meds, it was identified, and the doc wouldn't let me go out initially. So I had to hang back behind the company for about 3 or 4 weeks, and basically go on a really hard phys program, eating dust, and just basically, fizzing every day to get myself to a point where I could go. And thankfully I went, but wasn't out there very long because the drawdown happened pretty quick, and came back. So yeah, finished my career at REME Regimental Headquarters, as I said, W01 ASM. And I had a great career, really, really enjoyed it. Look back at it afterwards, really proud of what I did. Enjoyed my time. Was always sporty throughout my career. Played a lot of football, represented the Corps, and then was fortunate enough to coach and manage the Corps football team towards the back end of my career as well. So yeah, really, really enjoyed my time.
Oh, that's great. Cheers, Mark. Guys, feel free. Anyone else? Anyone?
Was there any history of military people in your family, Mark? From my own point of view, I mean, my father was a sailor, uncle was in the army, sort of strong sort of police presence in part of the family as well. So going into uniform wasn't a massively alien thing to me. I know you said you only thought of it kind of in your last year at school, but for me, it was always kind of something that was on the horizon.
Yeah, my was in Argyle in the Second World War in Italy. So he always used to talk and tell me all the really dull stories as grandparents do about, time in the war. When you know what it's like. And and then he left after the war and then joined back up again a few years and went to the Royal Artillery. So so I guess there was a bit of that.
Obviously, Mark, when you work with someone like, you come around OCF, there's a lot of veterans. We always talk about how we miss it and we miss the camaraderie, and you still kind of get that. Do you still have days where you think, God, I'd love to be back in? Or do you now think, 23 years, I did my dues, I've more than enough done?
I think, Billy, like you mentioned there, camaraderie, I think those are the things that you missed. I kind of made a pretty clean break, to be honest. I was ready to go. I looked at commissioning, was unsuccessful in the one attempt I had at commissioning. And then afterwards, I decided that probably it was probably the right thing not to have gone that way. I remembered a guy saying to us years ago, there's a lot more to life than, commissioning and staying in till you're 55. So yeah, at the time I was disappointed, but in hindsight, when the time came to leave, I was ready to go. But yeah, I do miss aspects of it. None of us miss.
No one misses the rubbish, but yeah. But I think obviously OCF, what it brings to a lot of people is that camaraderie. And obviously you are there at most events. Most of us are fortunate to get 2 or 3 a year, or even 1 a year. So to get that all the time has got to be really good.
Yeah, it definitely maintains that connection at the right kind of level that works for me personally. When I left the army, I went to work in one of the personal recovery units at Chilwell in Nottingham, and I was the specialist employment consultant, which was kind of new to me in lots of ways. But my last job in the Corps was in REME. You have something called the REME Association Job Agency, and as a W01 has that role for a couple of years, and it's all about engaging with civilian organisations, particularly engineering organisations, to promote REME service leavers to industry. So I kind of fell into the employment consultancy kind of thing through that. So that initially was a really good role to go into for me personally. Maintained that military connection by working with guys at the PRU. It was always great because having my first month there, I was still a WO1 in civvies until my end date came. So it was always great at 5 o'clock being able to say to all the rest of them in green, "See ya," while they were there till whatever time. So yeah, that was quite good. But I think as well the CO and the OC there kind of respected my experience, so it made it a quite a comfortable situation to be in, and I really enjoyed it. 3.5 years getting to meet and work with, you know, wounded, injured, and sick service leavers looking for their next careers and next moves. An eye opener as well, to be fair.
Yeah. So on that, so when did you join on course, and why actually? Why did you join? Obviously, you were going through right now, but why did you join on course? And
yeah, I think, well, there were two reasons really. I was quite comfortable where I was, but I was starting to get itchy feet. 3.5 years, as we do. I'd have been posted by then, so starting to get itchy feet. And the job opportunity came across, and now we'd had some experience of OCF through Ben and John Dodds. They used to come up and do, and Dave Onions, when he worked for the charity as well, used to come up and do the introductory days. So I was aware of them, but hadn't really had a huge amount of engagement, just a little bit. And there was just something about the job description when I looked at it that appealed. And I was ready for a change. So I thought, you know, why not go for it? I'd always loved sport. I'd never played golf. I'd always wanted to, but I'd never really had the time more than anything else to take it up. So when I applied for it, I think I ticked a number of boxes. The tick was golf, but that's one that we all know how easy it is to learn golf. So
Simple game.
I thought, it can't be that hard, can it? But I didn't know anything about the industry. But I think because of the role I was in, I didn't know, as an employment consultant, you don't know everything about every industry. So you have to learn about it. And that's all. That's the only way I looked at it. I've got to learn about the industry, employment side of the role that I got. So,
Mark, what's been the biggest challenge to you since you joined OCF? Because I mean, clearly as a warrant officer, you know, you've got this sort of wherewithal to sort of meet problems head on and deal with them. But getting out into sort of civvy life is a bit different. And I mean, we know that in the military, if you've got a bit of rank on your shoulder or your arm, you know, you can often get things done. But, you know, what did you find difficult when you got out there and started dealing with non-military people?
Well, I think when I worked at the PRU, I could see certain people leaving and wanting to take their rank with them. And I always felt that was a mistake, and it wasn't something that I looked to do. As far as I was concerned, I was a civvy, so everybody that I dealt with, I tried to get them into that mindset of, you're going to be a civilian, you know, you've got to leave that rank behind. And I could see that was difficult for a few people. And again, I think at OCF, because we've got a mixture of veterans and guys who are left of discharge, going through that transition process, you do come across that occasionally with people who maybe want to take their rank with them. So that can be challenging, I think, sometimes for people to leave that behind. The longer the career is, sometimes I think it can be challenging. But again, I guess that depends on what your role is as well. You know, for somebody like yourself, Doc, I wouldn't see that being an issue to you at all. But for other people, it can be. I think, I mean, in terms of challenges, I don't know really. It's a difficult one. I would say there was one really outstanding challenge that causes problems.
Yeah.
Just your golf.
Just my golf. Yeah.
I was going to say, and your driver.
Yeah, I'm a driver. Yeah, dealing with the RAF members is always a challenge.
Yeah,
Oh,
different class size.
one of the things that like I've always thought in the military was that people tend to have a kind of can-do attitude, and rather than hitting a problem and thinking about all the ways you can't do it, often like the military people around you will sort of say, right, how can we fix this, and crack on with it, have a can-do attitude. And sometimes with my civilian colleagues, it can be sort of the opposite. So I wondered whether that was kind of a challenge. You meet people in the civilian sphere who just have a different approach to things than we do in the military.
I think for a long time, you come across people that don't really understand the military and what the service leaver can bring to their business. I always, and that's something that you've got, the barrier that you've got to break down. The other one, I think, particularly for guys with injuries or illnesses leaving, is trying to get the can-do bit back and not the can't. I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. It's the what can you do, and trying to get that positive attitude. And you guys all recognise that's what will help you to progress, when you leave the military. So yeah, that sometimes is a barrier that can be difficult to break down with people. Yeah, recognising the military skill set for some civvies is difficult. There's no question about that. But it's hugely better than it was.
Yeah, sometimes I think in Civvy Street, people have this idea of military people as being a bit, sort of, they have that kind of idea that everyone who's ever been in the military is a sort of bit of a dunderhead, and just there trying to go and sort of kill. But I don't think they realise the breadth of experience and sort of abilities that we have.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think when I worked at regimental headquarters as the job agency ASM, that was quite clear with a lot of engineering companies. Actually, I did quite a bit of work trying to break into the rail industry for REME service leavers, and there's a lot of work in the rail industry these days. But trying to break down some of those barriers, you're absolutely right. When you start talking to them about REME service leavers in particular, that was obviously my area of expertise. It's like, well, what can what can you guys offer? Well, guys have got HNDs, they've got degrees, they've got a wealth of experience. And once you start to get beyond that and start talking in the same sort of terms as they understand, then the barriers start to come down. And when you start talking about guys working on operations, particularly in the Afghan environment and the Iraq environment, and being team leaders and what have you, and the life experience that goes with that, then that's huge. There's no problem, in my opinion, there's no problem that a guy in Civvy Street is going to face that's anything like being in a FOB in Afghanistan, or being, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if guys can deal with that, and young lads can deal with that, they can pretty much deal with anything, I think.
Yeah. There's certainly got a lot to offer.
Okay. Another one now. So, change of topic. When was your first event? Do you remember? If you remember, were you a bit kind of not nervous, I would say, but obviously because you've been working with the PRU, so was it
Apprehensive.
was it a bit like a difficult or different? Because obviously in PRU you got like a service personnel, they are going through their rehab and everything. But on Course Foundation, you'll find more like a veterans, medically discharged people. How different was it? And were you nervous at the first, or how was it?
Yeah, I would say I was a little nervous. I think most people are nervous on the first day in a new job, even in even in an environment that they're comfortable in. You can still be nervous in your first day. Like the first day you get promoted and suddenly you move somewhere else, and nerves come with that a little bit. my first event, which happened to be my first day as well, was at Stoke-by-Nayland in 2015 with Alex Wilston when he worked for us. So back then we used to have 2 members of staff per event, and it's something we changed the following year. But what Alex did with me on that event was I was there as one of the beneficiaries. So I joined in with the beginner group for those 3 days and worked with Di and Alistair so that I could see and understand what a beneficiary goes through on a 3-day event, particularly if they're brand new to golf. So it worked pretty well. Yeah, it was a good event. Obviously, first experience of Di and Alistair as well. One of the first people I met there was Jason Evans and John Devlin. Bless him. He's never left me alone since. But yeah, and I could quickly see how the game could help people, and I could quickly see the camaraderie at that event between the guys who knew each other. But also you could see that it wasn't necessarily easy for those guys turning up for the first time. So that's one of the things that you pick up on straight away is you have to make that environment as comfortable and as welcoming as possible, particularly for new people, because you know that those events work, but they won't work if somebody doesn't feel welcome or comfortable there.
Oh.
Is that something you guys would agree with? First event, I know, Nick, you've spoken about your first event and the nerves that come with that.
Yeah, I think like in regards to obviously turning up, I remember when I first turned up and I first met you, I was massively nervous. I've not been on an event like this. So I remember the first couple of people I met was you, Boz, and and I remember the first time I come in, I was wearing a hat, and I didn't know the rules and regulations and stuff and that when it comes to clothing, and all I got was a tap on the head with someone's hat going, take your hat off. And it's just little things like that. It makes you laugh when you look back on it. But yeah, I think for me it was, more of a confidence thing, because you obviously different people have different aspects when it comes to injuries.
Yeah.
It does knock confidence and stuff. And when you have people like yourself, Alistair and Di and Richard, they all have certain elements where, they bring out that confidence in you to go, you can do this, you can achieve things, with yourself and Will. It's always that backup and that support is going like, if there any problems, we're here to help, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think you pick, like you say, you pick up on that camaraderie and people make you very welcome very quickly. The first event I ran on my own was at the Mere in Cheshire, and it's become, for those guys who were around at the time, it's become kind of renowned as one of those standout events. Not because I was running it. We turned up on that. We turned up on the first day, and two sort of things happened. Firstly, the director of golf at the time said, we've got some former footballers here today playing golf, some ex-Liverpool players and Man United players, and we're like, that's great. Hang on, my computer's just done something. And we said, oh, great. Okay, never really thought anything of it. Walked out onto the terrace, and there's a PGA wagon there with a scoreboard up. Sat down. Jez was there. Sat down with Jez, who I had met previously, with a coffee. And we looked over our shoulder, and Paul Scholes is walking down the path with his golf bag on, and we're like, hello. We looked at the board, and there are all these Liverpool and Manchester United legends there. Jamie Redknapp, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen, Jesper Blomqvist, David May. There was a whole load of them, and they were playing this competition between themselves over the course of the day. So so we got to meet, and all the guys got to meet them. We spoke to Jamie Redknapp, and when they'd all finished playing later in the day, they came and did autographs and photographs and things with everybody. And there was a couple of Scousers that were on there first time, and they couldn't believe it. They were like, does this happen every time? And we're like, no, unfortunately, we wish it did, but no. So it was quite an interesting first one. And I remember, and the gallows humour came out, because when we do the arrival briefs when everybody first arrives to go through what's going on. And the golf manager was just stood in the background when we first started doing the introduction. And I just said to him, Ian, is there anything you want to add about the clubs, anything I've not covered? And he says, the only thing is that guys, the members around here get very particular about socks. I said, all right, go on. And he said, yeah, they don't like coloured socks. They don't like trainer socks. They've got to be above the ankle white socks. That's what you've got to wear if you're in shorts, above the ankle white socks. And Mick Falls was there. And I think you all know Mick, don't you? Double amputee, all boy. Straight away, sharp as a tack, Mick pipes up, what if you haven't got any ankles? And of course, everybody started laughing. And Ian went crimson. Like, didn't know what to do. And he realised everybody was laughing, and Mick started laughing. And yeah. But it was just one of those little gallows humour stories. And yeah, it settles everybody down.
Yeah.
Have you ever found, like, when you go to certain like events or golf courses where, you know, it's your first time coming along as an OCF representative, that you feel like you're out of place? Because I know, like, with some sort of golf courses or some golf places, you know, you kind of feel very belittled or out of place when it comes to certain events. I'm just wondering if you've ever come across sort of anything like that.
I wouldn't say so. Generally speaking, the foundation's always welcome wherever we go. You get the occasional things with members, you know, the club who don't necessarily know what's going on or who we are.
Yeah.
In fact, that Mere event, Alistair Barr was on that Mere event, and he would tell you a little story how some members got right up behind the final group. I can't remember if it was on day 2, I think it was, and started giving Alistair a hard time about pace of play. And he pointed out what was going on, and they were very apologetic, didn't realise, hadn't told them. And then when they went in, they'd put money behind the bar for everybody to get a drink. So, you know, that problem went away. Generally speaking, no, we've had a problem. We had a problem elsewhere with a member, and dealt with that. And again, just a lack of understanding, really, I guess, not a realising, because we all get sort of wound up about pace of play, don't we? And it was the same on the other instance, was pace of play related. Them getting a little bit nasty, to be fair, because the pace of play was slow, really out of order. And when we spoke to them, they continued to be out of order. So we just reported them when we got in, and let the club deal with them. But yeah, generally everybody's fine.
Obviously, most of the members know you as well. Like, you know, the few new members might not know you. So, would you like to say, or would you like to tell what your job role is, kind of thing? Everyone knows what you do, but, like, you know, there's a few members who doesn't know what you do. And while doing a job, whatever you booking or anything, what kind of difficulty you face, you know, dealing with the golf clubs or maybe the people around?
Yeah, so my role is head of events and employment. So it's a double-headed role. Looking after the event program, putting everything together for the season in terms of events, and then secondary is anybody that's looking for employment within the golf industry. It'll be me that deals with them, generally speaking, to try and find roles. In terms of events, yeah, it's dealing with golf resorts and golf club secretaries, directors of golf, booking cells at resorts to get the best deal that we can. Difficulty sometimes is that what I'm always cognizant of is they're a business. Yes, we're a charity and we want the best deal we possibly can. We want everything cheap as possible. If we can get it for free, even better. But you've got to remember that it's a business that you're dealing with. So it's trying to find that balance most of the time. And some venues are really, really good. They understand us. There's reasons we go back to certain venues every year because of the welcome we receive, the environment that the guys are there are put into. Places like Greetham Valley, for example, Bredsall Priory, my own club, where the members really make us welcome. Sanford Springs, Cumberwell Park, to name a couple, Kingsfield in Scotland. And yeah, whereas others can be more transactional and think of us as just another golf group, don't necessarily take into consideration disabilities within the group or anything else like that. We're just another golf booking as far as they're concerned. So they can be quite difficult in some cases to deal with. Buggies always is always a problem, the price of buggies, which frustrates me quite significantly, if I'm honest. Some places will be really good and give us buggies at very good rates. Others, it's trying to get blood out of a stone to get them to knock a fiver off. So and obviously they know the group that we are, they know that we need them. So can be very personality driven as well. People understand what we do and who we are and the group that's coming, then they can be much more forthcoming with what they do for us. And you see that. You guys have been to places that we go to and see the way the pros deal with us there, or the staff in the shop, or the staff in the event. Hunley is a fantastic example up in the northeast. You've been, Nick, haven't you? Doc, you've not been, have you? And Billy?
I've not been, no.
But Hunley,
different
North
world.
Yorkshire, they proper look after us, don't they?
Yeah, different world up there. Even like the old boy, I can't remember his name. He'll come along and just obviously make sure everything's going smoothly. And if there's any problems, he'll help us out and sort it out. But no, different world up there.
Yeah, and that's the environment we want. So if we go to somewhere and we don't feel we get the right service, or we don't feel the environment is correct, then we won't go back. And there's been a couple of places like that. A couple of places that we've tried and found that the facilities aren't quite what we need, but we've given the place a chance, but it just hasn't really worked. But you've got to try these things. The more places we can go to as a foundation, the wider the name of OCF becomes known within golf. We are pretty well known, but again, there's a lot of churn within the golf industry with people in roles. That's something that I have found out quite a lot over the last 5 years. So you build a relationship with somebody at a venue, and then the next thing you know, they've gone. You've got to start all over again. So yeah, it can be challenging, but most of the time it's good. In terms of employment, yeah, it's opening people's eyes to different roles. That's the biggest thing. We're never going to get hundreds of people into employment in golf. It's very much for those that are ready to go into employment, those that want to go into employment, just encouraging people to explore different roles. And we've seen some great successes, as you guys know. People like Billy Webb recently doing fantastic at Northants, probably going to turn his life around by getting a job as a greenkeeper when he finishes there. Yeah, real success stories like that. Del Sullivan, helped him get in at Barnum Broom, and he's about to become the golf ops manager there after being member administrator for a couple of years. Life's going that way for him. So not easy, to be honest. Yeah. Employment in golf, to find these opportunities, they are there.
So you've touched on something there, Mark. I was thinking of, and literally Billy Webb was the person I was thinking of then. I've been involved with OCF for about 18 months, so relatively new really, and I've done 3, maybe 4 events, and I can see, although I hadn't been playing golf long, I wasn't new to golf, but what I really enjoy seeing is the guys that are absolutely brand new to golf and walking away after 3 days loving it. Now that, to you as the events manager, must be an awesome feeling, but then obviously I saw the video that you put out of Billy Webb recently, which I thought was brilliant, and seeing how happy he is and all that, that's got to be it's got to be comparable. I mean, what is the best side of your job really is kind of what I'm getting at. Is it the events or is it the employment? Because they seem to be two massively rewarding roles, but you're double hatting as both.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't say one stands out more than the other, if I'm honest. I think what warms me is just seeing the progress that you guys make, that beneficiaries make over a period of time. There's been some fantastic stories that I think G would say that we're all proud of. We're proud of each and every one of you that making progress and really buying into the charity and what we do and being part of that family. Seeing Doc starting out 3 years ago, couldn't hit a golf ball. Still can't.
3 years later, wasted money.
Still can't.
But he doesn't hit it quite as bad as he used to. Nick, as he said, coming along nervous first time, but the progress Nick's made over time. We were just talking before about, he's been practicing with his driver. Says, is that seeing how high you can throw it into the trees now? So he's making progress in a different way. So
it's only going in the bush.
Yeah, I mean, hugely rewarding. Billy's a great story. Dell's a great story. You look at like Mike Brown from a playing perspective, turning pro as an amputee, playing in various tournaments around the world and doing well. That's great. He's one extreme. John Devlin, turning pro as well. John had obviously played golf for a long time, but mentally, John was one of the first people I met. And the difference in John Devlin now to where John Devlin was back in 2015 is unbelievable. Dom Felton, first event at the Mia. I remember being with Dom on the golf course, him getting on a tee box, teeing his ball up and facing the wrong way on the tee box, ready to hit his ball.
And don't tell us you told him.
But a man massively lacking confidence in everything that he did. Then get him like the following year to get him out to Menorca on a plane when he'd never, when he could barely get on a bus. Taking him out to America, a couple of years back as well, to the other side of the world. And the development, and you all know Dom, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Development in Dom. If you'd have met Dom back in 2015, you would barely recognise him to the man that he is now. So I think all of those stories, and there are loads of them, they all give us, all of the team, a lot of pride. It is rewarding, Billy, you're right. But I wouldn't necessarily say one stands out more than the other. It's just the general success of so many people.
Nice, mate. It's a great answer. I think you've got one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever met of someone, and not only that, you get to play golf, which is brilliant.
Well, many guys, many people have sort of said, if you decide to pack in, let me know. It is a great. I mean, for me, it ticks so many boxes personally. Working in a sport, working in that environment, working with veterans and the guys that are serving as well still, and helping people. All of those things tick personal boxes for me in terms of employment. So, yes, it is a great job. But you guys make it as well. And I'm not blowing smoke. You do. It's a pleasure working with a lot of you guys. And I've said it before. To me, you're not just beneficiaries. It's more than that. It means more than that.
Yeah.
I was going to say, for a lot of people, I think it's more, where some people say like, I miss being in the army and stuff like that. Given the situation with so many different people coming from different backgrounds, different, regiments, different services, everyone kind of gels together like a big close-knit family. And I think there's a lot of us, who totally agree. We're glad that there is an event like this that can facilitate people with different aspects.
I don't think it's just the events either. It's like, look at the last 12 months with what's been going on in the world. How OCF has kept us all together has been superb.
Insane.
WhatsApp groups, Zooms, you know, all of that, we all needed it. Everyone needed that little bit of banter, that little bit of whatever we're missing in our lives that probably we're missing from the military life. OCF and, you know, G, so not just you, Mark, sorry, but G as well. What you guys have put on for rest of us have been superb, absolutely superb. Cannot be faulted.
And I think that's what it is.
G just does as he's told, Billy.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Other than getting the wrong codes wrong on the old Zoom meetings. Just saying.
Yeah.
But I think like Billy was saying, you know, if it wasn't for you guys thinking ahead of what can we kind of plan given the current situation, you know, not being able to see each other on the golf course and, you know, allow people to vent, you've kind of connected everyone with these Zoom meetings to allow them just to have their, you know, have their little 5 minutes of a event, and then everyone just pretty much take the piss out of each other. And then I think that, sorry, I was going to say, and I think the other thing is as well, is like, you know, the fact that you've gone above and beyond, you know, and getting like special guests to come on, like Tommy Fleetwood, you know, all these sort of people, even Nick and David Davy, you know, things like that. It's never dreamed of seeing anyone like that. But to have it there in front of you on a tablet or a phone or laptop, you know, it makes it more special, and it makes the charity more fun and enjoyable to be with.
Yeah, well, I mean, thanks for the kind words, guys, as well. I mean, you know, we made no secret it was a challenging, you know, 12 months or so ago. I think nobody really knew what the future held. So looking at ways that we could engage, we couldn't do it without the technology, clearly. And he's really got stuck into how to use the technology, even though he does get the codes wrong occasionally. He's really got stuck into how to use the technology, and is the driver behind a lot of this that goes on. And gives up a lot of time to put these sessions on for everybody. But it's because he's passionate about it. He understands it. He's been there as well. He understands that. So yeah, it's been a challenge. So it's just trying to think about what we can do. You know, outside of, I hate the outside of the box phrase, but it's just, essentially that's what it is. And I think even with events, if you think back, we were very fortunate to get events going last year. Lots of charities, and this is not to be dismissive of what other charities do. Lots of charities just stopped doing anything. But we didn't want to go down that road. We wanted to see what we could do. And of course, most of the time, the golf course and a golf club and resort is an environment where you could carry out social distancing. You know, we always joke about it that we tee off together and we see each other at green. Doc tries a left flanking approach through the trees most of the time. Nick tries to go along the beach as much as he possibly can. You know, very few of us just go head on down the middle, do we? So it certainly lent itself to being able to do socially distanced. But it brought changes that were kind of forced upon us. When we went to that, if you remember the group of 6, we could only have 5 people with a pro. How much better was that?
Yeah.
Having those smaller groups, more concentrated groups that we've kind of fell into and will continue to do. It just worked so much better. And Dial Llewellyn was like, when I said to him, this is what we were going to do, he didn't really understand it. But when we did it at Carden Park, he was like, why have we never done this before? Yeah. So there's definitely good things come out of it. Waiting to get back to normal. Well, you know.
So I was going to say, Mark, I was going to ask, On-Course celebrated its 10th birthday last year. Do you think there'll be any kind of directional change in the way the charity moves in future, say in the next 4 to 5 years? Or is it just a case of this is a winning formula, stick to it?
I think it's a winning formula. You sit on the staff meetings with us as well. I don't really see any great change at the moment. It's generally what people say is we do what we say we do. You know, we're niche, it's golf. We don't try to do anything else. We've looked at that in the past. There was a consideration a couple of years ago to look at other sports, but it was decided to stick to what we do. And it's a winning formula and works. I guess what we'll try to do and continue to do is just maybe adapt things, you know, where we need to. But it works, Doc.
Yeah.
The thing that perhaps is challenging at the moment is doing introductory stuff with serving personnel. That's become quite difficult. Naturally, there's less people going through the PRUs. The Battle Back Centre course that we do, that you did, you know, we haven't been able to do that last year. We won't be able to do it this year. So reaching out to potential new members, because we know they're out there, is becoming a little bit more difficult. But we're engaging more with the Navy, incidentally. So I would anticipate that we may get a few more through the Navy ranks as well. So,
Right.
but I think, to go back to your original question, I can't see us changing a great deal.
Good.
Yes, man. As we always say, it's really difficult for beneficiary to come to the event, and you know, first event. You always say that it's more difficult for you if you have like a 2 or 3 members who you don't know, with an injury especially. It must be difficult for you to how to manage, and what happens if he's a mental health problem or anything like that. How you deal with that?
Yeah, we've had 1 or 2 instances, more so in the early days, of people that just haven't settled, you know, have come along first day, just haven't really settled. And I remember one guy in one of the early events, he just tipped his hat and said, look, I'm not sure, I'm just not comfortable. Well, we can't make somebody stay. You've obviously got to let them go home, but make sure that they're okay. Yeah, there was an incident at one event as well where a couple of guys clashed, not significantly, but there was a little clash. It was somebody was asking him to do something. He took offence to what was said, and you know, and it didn't escalate any further than that. Just one guy went, right, I can't cope. I need to be out of here. So we obviously had to let him go, but we made sure by keeping in touch with him that he got home safely and everything was okay. So it does happen occasionally. It's bound to, given that the medical conditions that some people are coming with. But most of the time, Minnie's a great example of this. Dead nervous about coming last year to his first event. Almost called off on the morning, decided that he would give it a go, because John Devlin knew him and said, sorry, not John, although John did know him, Stan knew him and said, you've got to come along, Minnie. And I played with Minnie in the scramble on the final day, and he said, I'm so glad that I came. I can't believe that I was not going to come. I've had such a good time. And Minnie's not looked back. He's fully involved, as you know. And a great example of somebody, you know, being, you know, with a mental health condition that was pretty wary about coming, saw it through, and has progressed on quickly. So
yeah, he's very active I've never met the guy, but very active in the WhatsApp groups. He's always interacting with everyone else and got something to say. So I look forward to meeting him and playing with him.
He's a good lad. He comes on Zoom sometimes. You just can't see him because he's so little.
Where'd you get his name from?
Well, yeah, he's Minnie's a great guy, and again another success of somebody who I'm sure will go on and do more. Will say peer support.
Yeah, I
Peer
think
support is massive, and I'll say when I first started that you didn't see it in the same way that you do now. It's improved all the time, and that comes down to mostly to you guys being prepared to support and help each other, you know, break down those barriers, putting arms around each other, making people feel welcome. And I think, and it's a sad note, but we know we lost Gus Hales last month to COVID. It was very sad, but I think the response from all the guys on the group was evidence of just how much people care for each other and how people will look to support each other when they need to. And we see it pop up every now and again on the group chat. Somebody sticks their hand up and says, you know what, I'm feeling pretty shit at the moment. And everybody everybody rallies around them. And that's, you know, again, that is so good to see, because it's an environment that we want people to be comfortable in.
Yeah, that's very good. I think anyone? No.
I was going to say, I know that obviously we've been talking about obviously certain aspects of like OCF and stuff like that. Is there any part that, you know, we always like the funny bits? There's always some aspect where someone's done something that's hilarious, and you look back at it and going, "Do you remember when he did that?" And I'm always wondering if you ever come across something like that.
I remember Dom putting ball after ball in the water in Orlando. Funny, to the point that his clubs very, very nearly followed them. And we had to kind of put our arm around him and make sure that his clubs didn't follow him and that he didn't, you know, go in. But it was, yeah. Probably one of the funniest things I've seen was Kev Hall, bless him. And Doc, you were there that day when we went to Oxford Golf Club last year before we did the camping trip at Kate's, which you didn't want to come to because you didn't want to go in a tent.
Typical officer. Typical officer.
I'll come back tomorrow because it's a bit cold.
Standard.
Kev Hall stood on that first tee, Nick, at Oxford Golf Club, and you're looking down the fairway, and off to the left is a little pond. It's only small, about 20 feet long. It wasn't very long. Kev gets up there with his, and there's a couple of groups gone, and you know what Kev's like. Tees his ball up, a couple of practice swings, put his ball at right angles into the pond behind him. And it was just, I just wish somebody had videoed it. And it was one of those things where we all just looked as if to go, how the hell did he do that?
I think, like, when you look at things like that, I'll never forget the one that I had the closest shave to someone's head.
Is this what we went to Hanbury Manor, and I'll make this the last point, G, because I'm getting on. We went to Hanbury Manor in September with Simon Banks. He had a 4-ball, and there was me, Nick, Simon, and my lad Joe came with us as well. And he did this little thing with school that he'd been invited by OCF to play with a couple of wounded servicemen, so I did pictures, and school loved it, the fact that he'd come down, and you guys have all met him. So we're stood. So if you think Nick's on the tee, and we're playing off the yellows. Nick's on the tee. Me, Simon, and Joe stood behind him, which is the right place to stand on the right hand side, so we see what's going on. Unfortunately, we were all looking at what's going on. Nick hits his driver, and he manages to hit one of the red tee box markers with his ball, and the ball flew past my head within about and buried itself in the woods behind us. Now, if I'd not been paying attention, because I actually had to do that, didn't I?
Literally.
That. If I hadn't been paying attention, he would have killed me that day.
You know, you're sitting there going, how can you explain that to nearly 400 people? By the way, someone that we quite admire and look up to killed him.
It was a really bad drive.
Yeah.
It literally was. I've never hit
Simon
someone so
actually,
hard.
Simon Off. I'm pretty sure it was Simon did something similar at Hunley. He teed off, and there was like an old concrete block somewhere to the left, and somehow he managed to hit that, and we watched the ball fly over our heads behind us. Yeah,
Incredible.
It's those things, isn't it, that we all smile about and love.
James England did something with me and Boz down at Boz's place in Gorday-Luce, a par 3, and he hit the ball, skewered it off to the right. He was heading for a pond. It hit one of the red hazard markers, bounced off the top of the hazard marker, and ended up about 2 foot from the flag. Impossible. One of the best shots ever.
Anyway, thanks, Mark. Really appreciate what you do for OCF and for all the veterans in OCF for us. Really appreciate it. what you do,
Thanks,
man.
G.
Obviously, as a beneficiary plus a staff, I didn't know what you guys did before I joined you, but now I know. You know, it takes a courage and it's a lot of time to even do a one event. You know, so I really, really appreciate it. And on behalf of all the members, I would like to say thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're very welcome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I agree.
yeah. Before we go, as you are our special guest, Doc would like to ask you a simple question. Doc.
Well, yeah, Mark, it's a time-honoured tradition now when we have a special guest on to ask you. You know, clearly it would be like three of us, of the four of us here. But given the chance of your perfect four ball, who would the other three be? Who would you make up your four ball with?
Are we talking OCF members or are we talking?
No, well, OCF members if you like. Let's do OCF members and then sort of fantasy golf members.
Well, I could probably do you a nightmare three ball of OCF members. I think would be one of them. For sure. No, it would be wrong to say three OCF members. It would be you, clearly. But no, it would be wrong.
Yeah, clearly.
OCF members.
Sucking up.
Ideal four ball. Well, probably for different reasons. I'd love to play golf with Donald Trump.
That's left field.
I think it would be entertaining.
Yeah.
I would think it would be very entertaining to watch him. With Barack Obama there as well.
As his caddy.
Because I think that would be entertaining. In fact, I'd quite like to play with the three last ex-presidents, Bush as well, because he's a golfer. That would be one. But I think so that would be one ideal football for different reasons. But always been a sporty guy, Kenny Dalglish, and football hero, without a doubt. Of the golfing greats, that's a tough one. Probably Arnold Palmer. He opened so many doors to golf. Arnold Palmer for sure. And I'm not sure who the third one would be.
It's all right, Mark. We've got all night.
It's got to be seven, surely.
I was going to say, it's Tiger or Seve, isn't it? It's Tiger or Seve.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah, probably Tiger, I think.
Oh, Seve.
Yeah, I think probably Tiger.
He's
So-
picked Kenny.
Palmer
Calm down.
and Kenny Dalglish.
Brilliant.
Cy Auckland.
Good choice.
And Cy Auckland.
Cy Auckland, Tomo and Matt Oliver.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
big pair of earmuffs. Brilliant. Thank you.
Anyway, guys, thank you very much. Thanks for coming on, and thanks, Mark.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Mark.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks for
Cheers
everything.
for the invite, G.